And the reason we need to know it, because and let me say, it's suggested by some that our officially elected officers of the national government and others are drifting away from the Constitution and beginning to think it's outdated. So, my understanding is people are encouraging us to understand the Constitution so that we know when we need to stand up to defend it against what we may not agree with that's being done by those in authority or in the position of offices that are elected. Equal to that, and I bring that up because we all should know our own bylaws, and we need to know the election code so that we can help each other do what we need to do and do it the right way. I wrote some things out, and I'm probably going to jump around a little here, but well, let me do it, because I really need to stir you all up and then turn you loose on me or on each other, respectfully. Okay? Respectfully, please. A little known fact, and I know we have some former chairmen of the county here that can help you understand more of the duties and responsibilities of the chairman. That in fact, the chairman can and is held liable for what is or isn't done. A very specific example, and I was hoping that Mr. Altman was here tonight, but in his absence, my understanding is, because of his nature and being a gentleman, he has overseen the finances and has missed a couple of reports due to the Secretary of State. Each time he missed that, technically, it was Dan Davis's responsibility to pay the state $500. Dan Altman said, hey, that was my mistake, I'll cover that. My point is, there are some realities to what a county chairman is held liable for, not to mention how the things are operated and the potential of lawsuits or whatever. Because according to the election code, as I understand it, they say they give me the responsibility and authority to run the party on a daily basis, recognizing that the committee is the balancing part, much like our 3 tiers of government, that no, you, county chairman, aren't going to go out and do this without we agreeing. But we recognize, hopefully, that you have to run things from day to day or between meetings. So, we seek each other's counsel, which I do, truly. Seek your counsel and advice. Now, I will ask for forgiveness, but technically, and I want, before I let you loose on me, ask, how is it that I discovered this myself? With as many of you that's been in the business for as many years as you have, how is it that I've discovered this myself? We technically have not had a legal committee meeting for years. Okay? And I say that based on the counsel that I received today from the Republican Party of Texas, specifically Cassie Daniels. She said, now certainly you can operate as you do. And if nobody has a problem, or as we know, if nobody takes it to the lawyer and you don't get pulled into the courts, what's your problem? But you better be prepared to have your stuff together in case you do. With that in mind, she said to me, because I didn't get the 14-day notice out, now, you know, I said, well, I sent out an email notice 21 days before, and I did get around to sending the other out. She goes, well, the rule states 14 days. Okay? She said, you know, you don't have to, but you really should reestablish the meeting to call and nominate officers. Okay? Now, we had people take the oath. You took that oath. I mean, that was a meeting and we did that. Okay? But she's suggesting, and let me side note here, something that I didn't hear from anybody and didn't know until I asked her, and I actually asked her to call a parliamentarian and legal counsel on the state level. Bylaws don't go from one group to the next. They end with the biannual termination of the executive committee. Now, even the rules state, yes, you need to send out your bylaws. Of course, I'm going, well, we got some, but I didn't know they died last year. So we really are functioning right now without bylaws until we write them or adopt them, and I will be sending them out 14 days ahead before we have an official meeting to do that. We don't have, according to Ms. Daniels, any official officers that have been elected yet. We will do that again. Okay? And we'll do what we need to do to do it right. I appreciate your patience and your participation in that. And tonight's meeting actually is good therapy, I think, for me and everyone here, because I would like, after I flip through a couple of things, to open the floor under the direction of the chair and have people provide suggestions, input, criticism, and whatever you feel is necessary. And we actually have some very special people that have attended tonight to be able to do that. So, I talked about this. I know I'm going to bug somebody, but my comment about where do the rules and elected officials have authority versus we the people with our input and feedback. Respecting the office, but at least being able to get feedback. Organization and rules in my world are to help us get organized and focused, to achieve our purpose. They are not, nor should they become the reason we do things. We certainly, I have no question about policy and structure. I'm a believer, and I'm learning. But we shouldn't get caught in expressing all of our limited resources, fighting about details. Okay? We need to educate ourselves, understand, and work together. And again, I'm just pitching my feelings. Again, my comment, and some of the chairs here might bring it up. Duties and responsibilities of the county chair. Now, I actually found, and it's out of date, but it is an article that was online that, according to its comment, came from the 2010 County Chairman's Manual. Technically, the county chair is liable for these things. And it's the county chair's duty to manage the finances with the committee, but the county chair is liable to organize and collect current data and information to make it available to any citizen as well as candidates, to make sure to cover your own backside, have documents. Educate and training is something that we really need to do in order to improve our effectiveness. I'm responsible. I mean, I sat and watched Dan Davis try to pull off a primary election, calling 100 people, trying to get them to serve as judges. having a lot of them, cancel on it. Responsibility for conventions. Now, clarification, the chairman is responsible for the primary elections. The elections office and the county run all elections, but specifically the general election they take care of. But we rely on each other to help.
And you have to manage the money to do
right. The chairman actually submits an outline proposal for funding. And this last time, because we had a change in the elections office, the new procedure and equipment and things ended up costing a lot more than the projection. And many of the folks that served as judges have been waiting for their paycheck because the state decided not to send an emergency fund when we had more expenses than we had money in the bank. But yeah, the county chair has to put that together, and it's responsible for that. Conventions, of course, campaigns, one of our responsibilities is to provide as much as we can support for the campaigns, the Republican members, okay? And of course the daily operations. Well, given my overly optimistic policy letter, I would love to hear from you tonight what you think your responsibilities are and what you bring to the table. Okay? I love this. Forgive me, but in Matthew, and different Bible versions say a little bit different, but it's a, ye blind guides which strain at gnats and swallow camels. At times, I know from my past experience and studies, we do have a tendency on occasion to see other people's gnats as camels and think our own camels are gnats. Meaning, sometimes we're dumping big things on people and think it's nothing, and we look at people that have big problems and think they're nothing. So, my point here is that's why we need to seek each other's counsel and work together. And I will tell you, from a psychology standpoint, we aren't good at knowing exactly where we are. We're good at our feelings. But sometimes some of us, and I did this, one of my bosses in the military called me a bull in a china closet. And I just sat, well, that's not me. But we need to listen to each other's counsel and say, hey, help me. Sometimes I need a 2x4. No, or at least 3 strokes to go, oh, I think I'm going to start getting it. Anyway, a quote by Mark Twain, laws control the lesser man, right conduct controls the greater one. So, the desire and hope is, of course, to work together. I am committed to working. I'm committed to keeping this headquarters open so that we exist and have ears for the public, can reach out and do something, and I think something truly needs to be done because of what's going on in our nation. And there are some things we can do. Naturally, we've got to find a way to do it. I would like to now open the floor up to any discussion. You haven't missed anything. And I am grateful. There is a fine example and no better time to have a prayer and a pledge. Would the volunteer? Thank you.
I don't know that I need to do. So, dear Lord, please bind us together so that we may do your will and advance this country and one another and the voters and our office holders and the path that you would have us follow. In Jesus' name. Amen.
Would you be willing to do this?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Mrs. Bates. Okay, please. I know there's energy, emotions, and feelings. The floor is open. Don't be bashful.
Start. So I know there's a lot of new people here, we're done, and I'm going to preach my 146. And I just want to say, having received through the email and everything, I see people, some people have copied off, they have comments right at the top of the page. Having been a precinct now, I think I'm going on 6 years, 7, I haven't been here for like a long haul, but a lot of people have. But one of my frustrations as a precinct chair was that people were precinct chairs and they weren't doing a thing. We go to our zone meetings, they weren't emailing people, they weren't doing anything other than attending the executive committee meetings. And that's not what a precinct chair is. People want to hold it because they want to say they're a precinct chair. They can put it on their resume. They can, you know, when they're talking to people, if they need something, who's a Republican, they can say, I'm a Republican precinct chair, you know, and that's all well and good. But if you're not doing anything, then there's really no need for you to be a precinct chair. And maybe there's other things, you know, other people can't do things because it's their job. There's other things and they really don't want to, you know, take that spot. Well, there's new people coming in and they want these places. And just because your job is busy, you may have to leave for that reason. That's totally understandable. And so I'm just saying, having that outline of some of those things that were written in there, there really wasn't that much. It was like 4 or 5 things, one thing, one 100 club member, one person. Just ask them if they can work here. They might not need to, but all you just need to ask. That's, I think, you spelling out all of that you do is an amazing thing. And he can't do those things and be held responsible for them if we are not willing to do some of those things that, and I'm not the best either, I can tell you that right now. I mean, I have gone out and done things, but I could do better. So that's my plan.
Thank you. Just for clarification, I certainly don't, and nobody can expect anybody to do anything but their best each day. And you as an individual know what that is. But anyway.
Well,
yes, sir.
You put in there that you're going to decide who is doing a good job and who didn't, and then you're going to publicly try to embarrass or for whatever the people that aren't. And so, you know, there's these contradictions in that letter. Plus, you know, to me, that's a bylaw, is what you tried to say that is. And it hasn't been formally gone through any of the procedures. And I need to correct you. When you say you didn't know that there was a 14-day, you did because you put it in the email.
I didn't say that there wasn't a 14-day.
But, well, let me finish. You also said you would send the bylaws with the, you had it all there listed, what the actual party rule was. You said you were going to follow it. You put it in an email and it was on the website. It didn't happen. And then all of a sudden you unilaterally decided you're not going to send the bylaws, so we have no bylaws basically, so then you send out this letter, which it was signed, approved by you June 21st. We met June 21st. You didn't give it to us. You didn't put it on the agenda. If you wanted it on the agenda, that would have been the proper way to do it. And I don't know. We have an agenda here. We haven't even come close to going to it yet. Is this going to what it's going to be every meeting? You're going to come in and just start rambling, and then somebody's going to have to remind you to have the prayer and the pledge of allegiance? I mean, we cannot sustain this if we don't have organization, we don't follow our bylaws, and we don't follow our own agenda. That's the purpose of having a meeting, is to follow the agenda.
Thank you. Any other comments? Please, I know some.
I would like to say, why did you say that it was approved when we didn't even see it? We couldn't approve that on the 21st. And I'd like to ask you, have you been sworn in? We took the oath. Have you taken the oath to be our county chair?
I did take the oath when you took the oath.
He addressed us the county chairs then.
Yeah, never did the county chair individually.
Well, you know,
He addressed the county chairs.
now, I took the same oath, I raised my hand and took the same thing. You will not find, to the best of my knowledge, a county chair oath. You will not find, to the best of my knowledge, an oath for us that is the same in any county. The stand by. I'll get to you. No, hang on a second, because I brought this up during our meeting. The election code was the one that said, I am a county chair, effective the 16th of June. The election code said you, who are precinct chairs, are precinct chairs effective the 16th of June. We took an oath, but the fact that your time and your authority was dictated by the Texas election code is a separate reality from taking the oath. They are not binding.
Well, it's strange to me that Johnson County county chair is been sworn into that. And then when another county chair got sworn in on the 16th, he went down to the judge and was sworn in.
Okay.
So I don't understand, why are we got two different things going on here.
Well, I can tell we got 50 or some odd different people here, different counties. The issue is what is required. Style may be very different. Now, if it is incorrect according to the laws and rules, let us discover that.
Well, I think part of the deal here is we've had a set of bylaws, which with perhaps some amendment have been followed for some time. And, you know, as most organizations do, they have an expectation as to tradition of order. I haven't gone and looked up the legal recently as to what order you have to do things in. But I know that generally, in terms of the piece we're discussing, we have somebody in who swears in the precinct, the chairman of the party, and then we do the rest of the people, so that when the chairman's doing that, he's already sworn in. And there's some other things that probably where we differ from the official state guidance as to how to put together the bylaws. They range from things like how many people it takes to make a quorum, days of notice that are in our bylaws are different than the state. There are a whole bunch of things that were slightly different. And in the past, the advice we've gotten from the state was that in order to change those bylaws from one chairman to another, we had to propose the changes and get agreement that that was okay from the lawyers at the state party.
Yeah, the regulation states that we file a copy with them.
Yeah. I mean, there are a number of things in play. As another comment I'd make is it looks to me like some of what you send out is trying to winnow the volunteers down to the most faithful. You know, when you've got volunteers, you need to help them do what they're willing to do so that you get the most done. Because you're not going to get one horse that drags the whole thing. You need to encourage people to do what they want to do, and you can't say, you're by God going to do it my way, or I don't want to have you play the game. And so we need to be very careful about how we are willing to invite people and not tell them what they must do. Because as your job and as precinct chair jobs, you could do it 24 hours a day with 3 people and not get 100% of what you'd like to do done.
Okay.
Jim, if
Bill.
you got bylaws that exist, they're not adopted, or just put in a vote. In other words, if this word that the bylaws written, you can have to.
Right.
Why can't you just put it in a vote?
Well, because I didn't have the time, nor did I know they needed to be rewritten, what I submitted and proposed, and we did in the 21st of July meeting, was all in favor of supporting and approving in a temporary basis from now until the time we can call a committee to update them, because there are some things in the bylaws that are out of date, that references that don't exist anymore. I suggested we have a vote to adopt them. Counsel from the RPT is that technically without that 14-day notice, even though I didn't change anything, okay, didn't send out bylaws because we weren't changing any bylaws, but they suggested in order to stay letter of the law, we need to redo that. So we did. Everybody voted 100% of those in attendance. We had no objections during that meeting. Folks, you that have been here in the party and understand what it is, nobody objected. Everybody was fine. Now, I would challenge that the letter I sent out said my way or the highway. However, I appreciate your input.
But
Well,
I'm just saying, as a
those
general
words.
observation, you catch more flies with sugar than you do with vinegar.
Absolutely. And you get more cooperation with defining duties than having no definition.
Exactly. It seems like there's 2 things that we're talking about here. I'm hearing is that there's people who are upset with the way the meetings are being done, and if we just be a little gracious and give Jim time to figure out, because he is brand new, he's never done it before, so there's that camp. And then we have another over here, I hear saying that they don't want to be told things they're supposed to do. And so there's 2 different issues here. You can't really combine the 2. Either you're upset about the way the meeting's going, or you're upset about having all this list that just came out. Because there's nothing else in that email but that list afterwards of duties. So I think those 2 things need to be fine. And if you're, so be thinking about that when you're going to comment. Is it really just the laws that you're worried about and how meetings run? Because that can be changed. But it has to do with lists that everybody says, when you get more flies with honey, and you shouldn't be telling people what to do. I didn't take it that way, personally.
Well, I appreciate your
comment. Those are
comment.
the 2 things I think that, and so if you're going to comment on what it is that's really bothering you, not just the way the meeting's going. If it happens to be the other, then we need to talk
Okay,
about that.
I recognize Mr. Wilson just before, sir, because I did not address it and wanted to. Tom Manning brought up the issue about the agenda. Obviously, I didn't make it clear, but we don't have an official meeting because it hasn't met the minimum time requirements, so we have no agenda tonight. And that's what my intention was to say, folks. This is a great opportunity to learn and share, but it is a meeting much like others we have had before with no quorum. Cannot conduct statutory business.
Anything except statutory.
Except, yes, thank you. Mr. Wilson, please.
Your letter you sent out, as you referred to it as your policy letter. I think we need to clarify that you don't set policy. You may make recommendations to the executive board, but you do not unilaterally establish policy. And I think that needs to be clear. So that letter may be treated as a recommendation, and if so, this is not an official meeting. At the next official meeting, we need to discuss that by item and decide if the committee agrees or disagrees.
I agree with you completely.
So I want to make sure that's clear, and I'm not sure everybody understands that, but the chairman doesn't unilaterally make policy decisions
Yes.
on the part of it.
And I totally agree with that, although we live in a real world where my head is on the block, and they say I have the responsibility and authority to run things from day to day. So where is that magic line? I obviously...
The line is you make recommendations to the executive committee. The executive committee then either supports those recommendations or denies them. That's where it is. Plain and simple.
And again, I appreciate what you're saying. The reality is the executive, and this is just me talking, not the chairman, but nobody out there in the committee is held liable. Now, again, people that want to address, the details, I respect that. What's fascinating is I read this. Again, it's not clear to me in a good organization. It says here from the chairman's policy that in assigning committees, responsibilities of a committee should be clearly defined, often as a part of the bylaws, and accountability should be maintained. I mean, that's talking a different language than some of the concern here this evening. Clarification, assignments, accountability. Because there's some of the conversation is you shouldn't have that. Okay?
What I'm hearing.
Well, again, I'm saying it's accountability because it also says the precinct chairmen are responsible for the elections, for the conventions, for the party's business. So I'm just saying some of these things aren't balanced with each other. That's the only place I'm coming from.
Yeah.
Please.
We have a new chairman who is trying to figure out what his role is. Probably if he had been in a few more meetings, we'd have a little more work together. We've also have some new people in the room who have not worked with the rest of the staff before. I would suggest that we would do well to both have a little tolerance and a little consulting with one another, an assumption that each of our members are here because of the fact that we care and that we're trying to do the right thing. We may need to learn to do the right thing, and there's some things that we must do in correct legal fashion. But we need to assume that the other participants are trying to do the right thing and be willing to guide them without being mad because maybe Nelson screwed up and said the wrong thing. I'll certainly do that at some time. So we all need to cut a little slack. But for your information, the reason that the bylaws look the way they do in some respect is that sometime in the past we had county chairs who thought it was their sole prerogative to make every decision. And by God, you'll do it my way. And that's the reason some of the quote, what it takes to be a quorum and that sort of stuff exists. And there are still allergies in this county to a county chair who is overly autocratic. So some people react rapidly to that. And so, we just need to be okay that people are trying to get and make the legal things right and legal.
Right. Good comment. Yes, sir.
I'd like to go along with Nelson's comments there. I'm Gordon Rivers, I'm from Mobile. The enemy is on the outside of these walls, not in here. When we talk to each other with with snotty attitudes, hateful attitudes, trigger words, that isn't gonna solve any problem at all. We need to get our hearts together, get our emotions under control, and focus on the enemy that's outside the camp here. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
First of all, you said that we did not have bylaws.
They don't exist since
don't
the new
exist.
biennium.
Okay, so
Started.
in most committee or organizations that I've been in, there is a committee that writes up the bylaws. Why do we not have a committee to write up these bylaws?
You know, if those that were in attendance, if you remember, I asked for volunteers for that committee. Only had one person contact me. That's why.
And in the past, they went from one group to another. We didn't have to reapprove them. Does anybody ever remember having to repass the bylaws as we went from one biennium to the next?
Well, but that's what I'm saying is it was required.
But that's what he got for advice from the state.
But
So
why can't we
we're on a whole new
use,
ground.
why can't we use those bylaws as a starting point?
Oh, I totally agree, but until we address them with 14 days notice and meet and approve them, they don't exist.
Mr. Chairman, may I?
Legally.
But my intent was on the 21st when we met that we would do that.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman, may I
Wilson.
suggest, you had indicated back last May or early this month, or early in June, that you were going to send copies of the bylaws to all of the executive committee members, and that didn't happen. Even though they may or may not be legitimate now, would you please send copies
Absolutely.
of those recent to all committee members?
I will, and I can only tell you, circumstances have overwhelmed me.
I understand.
So,
Been there, done that, I understand.
Overcome by events.
I can do that.
yes.
Just like at the state convention, each 2 years, your law, you have your temporary committees, your rules, everything has to be re-established. And everything's done temporary until the delegates are logged in. Once they're logged in, and then we move forward and start doing party business, that operates as party for the next 2 years. Same way that we do to legalize or organize this right here. It's the same exact process. So, what we need to do is establish the committees, like you said, and then go ahead, get the laws taken care of. You can operate still under the Texas party rules because those are already established. So then you can go ahead and march forward. And once you get your bylaws rewritten, resubmitted in, because you have to submit them into the state anyway, like I said, it has to be certified that that's okay. That's the responsibility, it's the responsibility of the chairman to submit them, hopefully see that possibly there's any pitfalls or legal issues there in what he's doing, but not necessarily for him to approve them or to design them, okay? It's the committee, like Mr. Wilson was saying. The committee has to come together and do that. Once you establish this procedure, it needs to be done every 2 years, just like we're going to do it this state.
Yes.
The only difference is that we don't get 2 weeks notice.
Yeah. Well, that is the challenge that we have.
Do as I say do, not as I do.
Yeah, I participated in the platform committee, and the platform members didn't get the resolutions sent to them until Saturday night before the Monday they met.
Mm-hmm.
So we do live in 2 different worlds, but we need to work. I need to work to make sure everything is dotted and crossed. In fact, I have started a file, and I'm administrative background. I'm a believer in that. Doing it's a different thing, but we will make that. I will make that better.
The state party has a thing where they teach new county chairmen about the job, and it's a special drive down to Austin meeting that they do for you guys. I didn't know if maybe you've already been through that, or maybe in the next month or two.
They have only had it just before the election.
Okay,
So it's kind of like at the end of my term,
yeah,
it's offered by the county chair organization.
yeah, we clear a lot up with that.
Certainly.
I will speak for when I took the office. I had basically nothing from the chair who preceded me. The records were non-existent. I mean, there was stuff, but it was not records. So it's not unusual for a county chair at turnover to have very little to go on. And it takes a lot of work to go figure out what rules you're supposed to operate by and have operated by and all that. It's a challenging job.
I want to recognize, and it is an honor to have Mr. Gillespie here, who has been a part of this party since day one, as I understand it. Mr. Gillespie.
Well, I don't mean to be sarcastic, since we've got a new elected official here. I just wonder if our new elected officials are gonna get 3 to 6 months to learn their job without taking criticism that this party laid on our elected officials over a year ago. I want to say this to y'all. He talks about the enemies on the outside. I was the first Republican elected here. Y'all don't know what it is to have to serve with a bunch of Democrats. How dirty they are and what they do. We have rode the high road ever since I got elected. It was Republicans every year after that. And then when I see what's happened here in the past 2 years, when I ran, no Democrat in office, not one. I mean, no Republican. There was a precinct chairman for every precinct. Now, what have we got? 16 out of 48 or 49. I belong to an organization that's lasted for over 1,000 years. One thing we never, ever do is criticize another brother publicly. This party needs to learn from that. If you've got something wrong with our elected officials, you handle it with them. The only ones that are enjoying this dilemma we're in is these Democrats down here on Main Street. And you almost had some of them elected as Republicans this past election. That's all I got to say. I thank you for your time. I'll probably never bother you again.
For whatever it's worth, I and a few others got a call from Paul Perry and another individual that actually ran into the gentleman that is in charge of our county and a half a dozen others for Battleground, Texas. And he's been meeting in the coffee shop just off of Walmart. Starbucks. Interviewing people, searching for talent. They seem to like Ellis and want to plant here, so it does raise, you know, at least the issue of why and what business we need to be about.
Let me kind of add to that. I went down to Starbucks and there's a man sitting there with his laptop with Winnie Dave's sticker on it.
That's him.
And he's also looking to buy, get rid of an office here in Ellis County. And I subscribe to the Battleground, Texas, because I want to keep an eye on my enemies. And just the other day, I got an email now saying that we're fundraising it out in Waxahachie in Ellis County. So they're here, and they seem to think they can win. And what they're doing, and Naomi made a good point, it's a chink in our armor that they're exploiting. And we need to quit exposing ourselves to the Democrats. What's said here should stay here. It's like in Vegas. You know, I mean, we need to work together. I mean, people are elected now, whether you like them or not. Whoever's elected, we got to work with them as Republicans. We should stand together and work together and quit slinging the mud at each other and look at the bigger storm coming. Like Gordon's saying, there's a bigger storm coming, and they're here. And believe me, they're bringing 200,000 volunteers into Texas. They got the group from Ohio here, they got the group from Colorado here, they're working together as Battleground Texas. And I'm telling you, you're gonna see some shocking things coming. They're here and they're determined, they're gonna register dead people, legal aliens, and probably your dogs and cats' names if they can. So we need to be working together. I got friends I go shooting with that won't even register to vote. Now, I ain't worried about that. You better be worried. They're not, it's hard to get people to wake up, but we do need to start working together. We need to put all those differences from the election behind us. If not, we're gonna lose.
Well, and it drives me crazy when I sit and watch the news and the president says, I can't get the Congress or anybody to do anything, so I'm going to do it myself. Obviously, that's not a good way to work. But bringing that on the county level, I need volunteers, folks. If you're all just watching, try not to complain about me trying to do something. Because, it's something I know. We've got some serious problems coming our way fast. And it's not necessarily defined as a Democrat, but a lot of what we believe in and know and the foundations that have kept us free are being dismantled. I know that. I feel that. That is why I ran for this office, to try to do something. And I intend to honor and support the Republican Party all the way, but my concerns are with our freedom, and I know we need to start doing something. Anyway.
Can I suggest we have two comments? We got somebody?
You're out of order.
Stand up.
Well, some of you know, and maybe others don't, I helped form this party back in the 60s in Ellis County, and organized the Ellis County Republican Party. Back then, we were an extremely small minority, and our focus was entirely on the Democrats and electing Republican officials. We didn't even have Republican primaries in those days in the county. We had no candidates. We had, it was a different world. But we focused on the Democrats. And we built this party over the last 50 years in Ellis County. And what's happened in recent years, we've been looking inside the party and all the different groups and philosophies and angles, and we spent all of our time on this inside the party trivia and gotten totally away from the public at large and appealing to them. And I think that's what we have to do now, and we need to do it in a hurry, just as the chairman is saying. The organization and the structure, they're doing now what we did 50 years ago. And we're going to see the same thing happen in Ellis County that's happened in Dallas County. And I can tell you from past experience, the way it works in the large metropolitan areas, the surrounding counties, it may take about 10 years. Well, it's been more than 10 years. We're right at that point now, and here we are. And we're going to lose the county unless all of us start talking and appealing and inviting and explaining to the Republican voters in this county what's at stake, and quit focusing on the internal skirmishes we continue to have. I've been there, done that, and I really don't want to go through it again. And we sure as hell better not lose it, because we won't get it back in the foreseeable future.
You're right.
So that's where we are. And it's up to everybody in this room. You need to start talking with your friends and your neighbors and helping make them understand where we are and what's about to happen. Because it's not going to be a rollover in these next coming 2 elections unless we do something otherwise. So.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And I just want to reiterate how important you folks that have been here for a long time are to us who are new and just want to try to find the right thing to do. Appreciate your time and investment, and the same goes for Mr. Gillespie, who has left, Mr. Tabor, who has served for years, and I'm probably missing some people, but, you know, we need to work together. Now, are there any other comments? I want to keep this under an hour. What